My HYDRA method. Your first steps towards freedom from narcissistic abuse. Welcome to today's topic, ladies and gentlemen. I am Coach Tobias Forst, founder of Achilles Life Coaching, decade-long recipient of narcissistic abuse, and I've saved myself from it. And I will accompany you on your personal journey towards your freedom from narcissistic abuse. There are three basic factors for your personal use of my HYDRA method. The first one is that the HYDRA method enables you to structure your problems and challenges with regard to your particular HYDRA named narcissistic abuse directed toward you. Number two, it enables you to deduct concrete solutions for what to do and how you can solve said challenges and problems. And number three, you can structure your expectation management in a very healthy and precise way. This means that you can structure what is possible at what point in time, and what is not impossible. Because facing narcissistic abuse, being enveloped by it, having that gigantic nine-headed dragon or nine-headed snake lashing out at you from all directions, will at times seem overwhelming and possibly even without solution. But putting our heads in the sand is not an option, ladies and gentlemen. There's a way to fight this. There's a way to liberate yourself. And I hope that my HYDRA method will serve you at least as much as it has served myself on my personal process. I will give you, in the next step of this video, the next section, a brief retelling of the story of the fight of Heracles versus Hydra, the nine-headed snake or dragon, depending on the depiction. So in order for you to understand the subsequent 8 steps of the HYDRA method for you, for your personal use. So Hydra is nothing short of a monstrous terror on the lands. It consumes sheep and people and leaves debris and destruction in its wake. And it has a hideout, as most of those creatures do, in a cave. So Heracles decides to confront that monstrosity and fires flaming arrows into that cave, forcing Hydra out of her hideout and approach him on the open field. There a battle ensues between Heracles, all on his own, with that dragon Hydra. And he cuts off, let's stick with it that he cuts it off with a sword. Depending on the depiction, he uses a club, but it is more, or a more precise picture in our minds if we just imagine him having and wielding a sword. So he cuts off this head and the next head, but wherever he cuts off one, 2 more emerge from the stump of that particular neck. During that combat with Hydra manages to ensnare with its tail one of the legs of Heracles. He manages to free himself temporarily and retreat. There he regroups, asks his nephew Iolaus for help. They strategize, they formulate concrete plans. Heracles lays out what he tried, what didn't work, and together they approach Hydra again. This time the two together, Heracles wielding the sword, Iolaus wielding a flaming brand. And while Heracles cuts off one head after the other of that gigantic dragon, Iolaus burns and cauterizes the stumps of the necks, preventing Hydra from regrowing any of those heads. After that, what remains of the now step-by-step slain Hydra is the one immortal head of it. And Heracles grabs it, picks a particular spot where he buries that screaming but otherwise powerless head, and he buries it in underneath the ground. After that, he takes out the arrows that he has at his disposal, and he puts them into those toxin-filled sacks of the dead body of Hydra. So he coats them, that's the word, he coats them with the poison of the now slain Hydra. That's the story. Keep that in mind. Now what has all of that, if any, to do with you? The name of your Hydra, ladies and gentlemen, is Narcissistic Abuse, otherwise you wouldn't be here. How many heads does your Hydra have? Is it 9? Is it 3? Is it 30? What are the names of the heads of your particular Hydra? One of those heads might be gaslighting towards you. One of those heads might be being shamed in public. One of those heads might be you now being overweight because of your only escape seeming to be eating and consuming during nighttime, so you just feel something that resembles positivity until afterwards the next head comes in that is maybe named shame, your possible shame. Another one of those heads might be no solid boundaries. Yet another head's name might be no real free and safe spaces for you. The next question that I encourage you to ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, is how big are those heads? Not all of them will be the same size, but it might look like it when you're enveloped by narcissistic abuse in all its glory. How much gaslighting happens? How big is invalidation? How big is the head that has the name of lack of self-worth? That might be one of the biggest, because you've been probably indoctrinated a lot over the years. And last but not least, the fourth question I encourage you to ask yourself is, what is the time factor that you can attribute to each of those heads, however many there may be? Because not everything will be solvable at the same time and easily like that. What I can tell you, without knowing you, ladies and gentlemen, that at the end, the last time marker that you attach to this is the now, for you, by you, slain Hydra. That's the point where you reach liberation, and in between there are several heads that can be solved, have to be solved, in a sequence that is particular to your life situation in order to achieve that freedom. So let's go through the 8 steps of my HYDRA method. Step number 1, the flaming arrows into the cave. In darkness, in the cave, you didn't see Hydra for what it is, but you knew something was off. You've known for a time. You've seen the effects, you've seen the destruction, you felt the danger, and now you choose to face it. And you fire your metaphorical flaming arrows into that cave and drive the beast out. You force it to step out from the darkness into the light, into visibility. You see it now. And while you're watching this video, congratulations, ladies and gentlemen, because you've already reached step 1, because you've already forced the topic of narcissistic abuse. You've named it, you've found it, and you've forced it into the light. You see it now. Step number 2. HYDRA to Heracles was one of several, of 12 or in total 13 if we keep correct count, challenges in his life. You will come to the same conclusion for your life. Narcissistic abuse is not your only problem, because whatever life holds for you, it won't always be sunshine. Okay, that's part of the package deal of us being alive until we're not. But we will certainly not allow narcissistic abuse to dictate us how long we are allowed on this planet. Step number 3, the regrowing heads after being cut off. Excuse me. Without strategy, without a plan, you will likely in some cases make it worse before it can get better. An example. You might be gaslit or shamed by your narcissist in your life, and all of a sudden, seemingly out of nowhere, anger rises within you, and you put them in their place. You aggressively or passive-aggressively set a boundary, and you just basically cut off one of the heads, the gaslighting or the shaming head, but two regrow, because the next one looks around the corner the next day or an hour later or a week later that tells you, you don't have a right to set boundaries. You're not worth it. You don't deserve more than that. You can't do that. So without strategy and plan, it might get even worse. So what's next? Next is the retreat and regroup phase. And I'm talking about a mental retreat. Finding points of inner calm that enable you, where you enable yourself to be concrete and precise. To attribute names to the concrete problems of your hydra of narcissistic abuse directed toward you. And formulate possible solutions and underlying plans in order to proceed to the most favorable outcome, which is your personal freedom from and liberation of narcissistic abuse. During this regroup phase, I talked about the mental aspect of it. More often than not, it also coincides with a physical regroup and retreat. Take your time off somewhere, even if it's just an hour, and make your notes on whatever that no one else but you sees. Your retreat in a physical and both physical and mental way might be the walk through the forest, where there's no cell reception, where you can let the thoughts and feelings flow through you and allows you to sort them and prioritize them. What accompanies step 4, the regroup and retreat, is the insight, as mentioned at the beginning of the video, what is possible when for you to do and achieve, and everything that is not impossible. And finally, the realization that nothing positive will come from you not doing anything, choosing to not do anything. Step number 5, your Iolaus. Who is that? Who is your support? It might be you for yourself, because you've already achieved a high level of skills in dealing with narcissists and narcissistic abuse. You might be very proficient already in setting healthy boundaries, in making you either boring to narcissists or very unpleasant to narcissists, or both, depending on the person that tries to get into your head. Is it your therapist, your Iolaus? Is it your coach? Is it your best girlfriend? Is it your brother from another mother? Is it several people? Whoever it is, make sure, ladies and gentlemen, in step 5 of finding your Iolaus, plural included, that they have your back, that they trust you, that they have nothing short of your best interest at heart. And to keep in mind what role they should fulfill in supporting you, imagine the following. The shields of the Spartan warriors, they were conceptualized in a very simplistic way with a very clear message. There was a triangle with a direction that the tip was directed upward on one of those, on a single shield. So standing shoulder to shoulder, all those triangles continued like a forked fence. So whoever approached them knew that there will be a price attached to it, approaching these determined warriors, because they are capable of inflicting pain in some way. It won't be easy to confront them. Maybe they should go elsewhere. Step number 6, because by now nothing yet concrete has happened towards solving the problem of the heads of this gigantic beast, this monstrosity, HYDRA, narcissistic abuse. By now you have formulated concrete plans and strategies. You have supporters that back you all the way, however long it takes. And the first success comes and the next one follows, and the next and the next. How to, in a way, when you start to remove them, cut them off from your life, cauterize it so they don't come back, or even don't come back worse than before. Success will chase success, and as General Francis X. Hummel in The Rock movie from the 90s said, over time, it's just a finger exercise. It just becomes a finger exercise. You will become so proficient at it that you don't even have to think about it. You perceive toxicity in your surroundings and you handle accordingly in a way that is congruent with how you feel about handling that particular situation. Step number 7, the buried HYDRA head. As a concept, with all the real-life effects that narcissistic abuse entails, it cannot be extinguished. It cannot be erased. We have to face that fact. We have to accept it. But that bodiless, still shouting, moaning, groaning, evil eye-giving HYDRA's head that you now bury after everything because you've just slain HYDRA doesn't have to be your problem anymore. Will it regrow and be someone else's problem? Yes, as we all have our own life paths, our own steps to take of realization and taking action towards freeing ourselves from narcissistic abuse. Final step number 8, ladies and gentlemen, the poison arrows. HYDRA and narcissistic abuse in your life, without wanting to, have made you strong. Surviving narcissistic abuse, ladies and gentlemen, is nothing short of having a superpower. And remember that wherever, at whatever stage in life you might be at this moment, remember that even if you just tiptoed a bit or you've run the marathon around the globe to liberate yourself from narcissistic abuse, wherever you are, pat yourself on the shoulder and realize and accept that this is nothing short of a superpower. Surviving it and finding finding your way out to, at the end, become a survivor of narcissistic abuse. And the poison arrows are the added tools, the additional readiness and preparation for whatever else life might throw at you in your future. Hydra has made you strong. It didn't want to make you strong. On the contrary. But it did, and it now lies there, slain. And no one, you in particular, will hear the helpless screams of the buried head. To conclude this video, ladies and gentlemen, what remains for me is to ask you a few final questions. What are the names of the heads of your particular Hydra? Who is your Iolaos? Or how many people and which people are your fulfill the role of Iolaos in plural, in singular, in your lives? Comment below. And if you want my help with accompanying you with my HYDRA method for your particular concrete situations to free yourself and liberate yourself from narcissistic abuse, from the narcissists in your life, you can find my contact data in the description of this video below. Until then, and always, ladies and gentlemen, be your own hero, be your own heroine. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.